A tentative victory for abortion rights in Idaho last night has been followed today by a wave of abortion bans kicking in. Trigger laws officially went into effect today in several states. Doctors in Texas now face the possibility of life in prison for performing the procedure. And in many of those same states, these new restrictions are driving more people to the polls. In Kansas alone, women now make up 65% of new registered voters. That's a nearly 16-point difference from before the Supreme Court leak about ending Roe. Here with us tonight, Erin Haynes, formerly of the Associated Press and now editor-at-large for the 19th, a nonpartisan, nonprofit newsroom focused on policy, gender, and politics, and Tim Miller, a contributor to The Bulwark and the former communications director for Jeb Bush. He is also the author of the new book, Why We Did It. It is good to see you both. Erin, those numbers don't lie. The issue clearly motivating voters of all kinds, right? What are you seeing?
Well, look, first of all, Alicia, I have to point out tomorrow is the anniversary of the 19th Amendment, which my newsroom is named for. And that was when American women got the right to vote that they had long fought for. So it is good that we're talking about these statistics on voter registration among women really surging, particularly in states where abortion rights are under threat, places like Kansas, which you pointed out, Pennsylvania, where I am, Ohio, Florida, North Carolina, Alabama. But this is really not just about abortion, but also issues like voting rights, climate change, the economy, and education. All issues, by the way, that are women's issues. And more than that, they're the kitchen table issues that women care about and that we should talk to them about as voters and in terms of what their priorities are headed into November. But, you know, Alicia, I don't want to leave men out of this because we are seeing this on the ballot. And the administration is framing this as an issue of freedom. Men are running for office and taking up that message. I mean, we see Beto O'Rourke in Texas, who was out today with his first ads of the campaign, taking on Governor Greg Abbott, referring to Abbott's abortion ban. And those ads are going to air during the preseason showdown between the Cowboys and the Texans. So don't tell me that's not about reaching male voters.
Yeah, and that frame around freedom, big part of what we saw in Kansas, right? That's really what voters were coming out and voting about, government overreach. The president is in Maryland campaigning with gubernatorial candidate Wes Moore tonight. Our own Stephanie Ruhle got a chance to talk with Moore about the Roe decision. For an interview we're going to bring you in the days ahead, I promise. But here is just a slice of that conversation.
Whether it's Roe versus Wade, people starting to question, will gay marriage stay legal? Do people realize that all of these rights that it's been amazing that we now have could start to go away?
I think they are now. You know, and I tell you, I think Roe v. Wade and the barbaric decision that the Supreme Court made, I think was a real wake-up call for people.
Okay, Tim, we know it was a wake-up call for Democrats, motivating for Democrats. How much of a wake-up call was it for conservative voters?
Well, I guess I would just reframe this a little bit as talk about the voters in the middle. And some of those are voters who are very conservative. Yep. But, you know, we knew this was going to be motivating. I think here's the key group that a lot of times doesn't get talked about. Actually, a plurality of the country believes that there should be some limits on abortion, but that it should be broadly legal, particularly in the first trimester, particularly all the exceptions that are, you know, rape, incest, life, health of the mother. And so what we have now that has really benefited Democratic candidates is that Democrats are being seen as kind of the party of status quo when it comes to abortion rights. And Republicans are being seen as a party that wants to put in place these very extreme limits on abortion that are wildly unpopular, even with some people who consider themselves pro-life. You know, there is a certain segment of pro-life voters that do not want 14-year-olds who are, you know, raped by an uncle to feel like they shouldn't have access to an abortion. Obviously, that's a very extreme example, but even, you know, 5-10 weeks, you look at the Texas bill that Beto is running the ad against that Erin referenced. It's a 5-week ban. That is an extremely unpopular position. And so the Republicans have found themselves in the sour spot on this, where they're playing to, you know, the 20% of the country that have the most extreme views on abortion, and they're leaving on the table a lot of people in the big middle. And I think that is what we saw in Kansas and in New York 19 and are going to continue to see. And just really quick, there's proof that Republicans recognize this. We've already seen one candidate, Blake Masters in Arizona, cut an ad today that changed his position from that that extreme personhood amendment, heartbeat bill, back to, well, actually, I only support banning abortions in the third trimester. And the fact that you have a candidate on the ballot in a purple state changing their position shows you they know that they're on the wrong end of this right now.
Aaron, at a rally earlier tonight for Westmore, the president had some pretty strong words for voters. Take a listen.
The alternative to the Democrats are the MAGA Republicans. The MAGA Republicans have awakened the powerful force in America, the women of this nation. MAGA Republicans don't have a clue about the power of women. Let me tell you something. They are about to find out. The MAGA Republicans don't just threaten our personal rights and economic security. They're a threat to our very democracy. They refuse to accept the will of the people. They embrace political violence. They don't believe in democracy. This is why, in this moment, those of you who love this country, Democrats, independents, mainstream Republicans, we must be stronger, more determined, and more committed to saving America than the MAGA Republicans are destroying America.
Aaron, the message discipline there on not just calling them Republicans, but calling them MAGA Republicans, I think that goes back to something that Tim was saying, which is this is not just about conservative voters. This is about voters somewhere in the middle, appealing to them, appealing to people who might be registered as Republicans, who may still consider themselves Republicans, but want to distance themselves from this idea of being a MAGA Republican, who want to say, there's a part of this that I still believe in, but there's a part of this that I have to fundamentally reject. Is this all a preview of what we're going to see in the next few weeks?
Well, Alicia, I think it's not only a preview, I think it's a continuation or maybe even an evolution of where Joe Biden, where President Biden started when he launched his campaign for president, right? His whole mantra in the campaign is, this is not who we are. And I think that what we've seen over the course of the past few years is well, this is who some of us are. And so it's more of a question of, is this who we want to be? And so I think that is the pitch that he is making the American people headed into these midterms, it's particularly, not just women who we know are the deciders of elections. And I could say that every year because women are more than half the electorate, but, appealing to and really trying to separate mainstream Republicans, independents, people who might be open to really addressing the threats to democracy that we know are a concern for a lot of Americans, and the erosion of rights that is certainly a trigger for many Americans, because that is in the DNA of who we are as a country, the protection of rights. Appealing to those folks and really trying to separate them from the MAGA Republicans, calling that group of people out very specifically. I think it's intentional, but like I said, I think it may also be an evolution of his message on really bipartisanship and unity he can establish that with.
Tim, I want to layer on to Aaron's excellent analysis there that I also think there is something that's sort of unique to the MAGA Republican, and this is an idea that Donald Trump drove himself, which was this idea that the American dream was dead. That was almost the only way you ever heard him talking about the American dream. And so I think it has left a lot of room for Democrats to run on this idea that we still can have a bright future, that there still can be opportunity, and the possibility that there can be voters who are not Democrats who buy into that notion, right? What Aaron was just saying about, it's about the future you want to live in. It's not about the past.
I think this is why President Biden was successful in the last Democratic primary, actually, because he really channeled kind of an optimism that former President Obama put forth when there's a moment really in both parties where there's a lot of negativity and down-talking of America. I think that if you just look at the candidates on the ballot right now, there's a lot of Republicans running on this kind of American carnage. Remember President Trump's inauguration speech was called American Carnage kind of message. Look at the difference between J.D. Vance's very negative view of elites and the fact that America, it could be coming to an end, and we need this radical change, of the populist nationalists, to bring us back to the 1950s. Compare that to Tim Ryan running in Ohio and his ads, which have been very, no, let's build more things here, much more kind of in the lines of, what you would have seen from an Obama Democrat, or even, some echoes of Reagan kind of messaging, if you look at his ads. So I do think that's a stark contrast between where, how both sides are trying to position themselves in this midterm. And I think that you just have to admit that Trump's, kind of MAGA, American carnage cloud is hanging over a lot of these other candidates on the Republican side's messaging.
And those voter registration numbers, they just do not lie. Tim Miller, Aaron Haynes, thank you both so much.